Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Selenia Marquardt, and I am the Adult Literacy Librarian with LA County Library. And I want to welcome you all to today's program, How to Use AI Prompts. Okay, now I will go ahead and recite the land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and respect their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue the stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, Gabrieleno Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, Gabrieleño Band of Mission Indians, Kizh Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanaic.lacounty.gov. All right, so now let's get started with our program about AI. Please welcome our speaker, Julian Zamora, who is the Adult Literacy Coordinator with LA County Library.
Thank you, Selenia, for that great introduction. And thank you to all of you for joining us for this series of AI, how to use AI prompts. Last month, we hosted our first in the series. It was AI concepts, introduction to AI concepts. And if you're interested in looking at that one, and if you didn't attend it, we do have it on YouTube available for you to view. My name is Julian Zamora. I am the Adult Literacy Coordinator with Adult and Digital Services, and we will go ahead and get started. This is what we're going to cover in this webinar. Recap really quickly, what is AI, how it's in our lives, the type of AI model that we're going to be looking at today, which is ChatGPT, prompt engineering and best practices. We're going to have a live demo at the end, and I'm going to include some library resources and have time for questions as well. I also want to thank some of my colleagues for being here to help with the questions and the chat. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. If you have any responses, chat, things like that, you can put them in the chat. All right. Thank you so much. So as a reminder, we went over this in the first presentation, but what is AI? So some of you most likely have an idea of what AI is. And AI is an artificial intelligence is technology that allows computers to mimic or simulate human learning, comprehension, reasoning, creativity, autonomy, and problem solving. Essentially, these systems can analyze a lot of data. They can find patterns within that data. They can make predictions or suggestions. And, this is given to us, the users, us as humans. We are the ones in charge. We are the ones with the power, right? And so I'm assuming this is why all of you took this class, is so that you learn how to use AI effectively, and specifically prompts. You can see AI in all in our lives at this time. Whether we know it or not. If you do Google searches through search engines, our AI is already being utilized through your search results. If you're already using smart devices or have smartphones, I'm thinking of Siri, Alexa, any home smart devices. They're already utilize AI in the questions that you or prompts that you give them, right? When you ask Alexa or Siri a question, gives you a response. The more questions that you provide for them, the more prompts, the more that it learns and gives you better results, right? That's the end goal, right? Is to provide us with effective answers to your prompts. This is also in applications, whether that's through email, um, work applications. It's already being utilized. Um, for example, um, through the work, the um, Microsoft Office 360 already utilizes some of these AI functions to help and improve your productivity at work, and also the creative fields, which is a hot topic issue, especially with content creation and things like that. So whether you know it or not, or whether we're ready for it, AI is here. It's been here, and that's this is a technology that we as a library, want to inform all of you on how to use, right? And I have more words at the end about that. So let's get into it. So this is the type of AI model that we're going to be discussing today, is called LLMs, which are large language models. So these are powerful language models made to understand and generate human-like text. These models, think of it as a computer, large computer, or tons of computers, right? They have been trained to answer questions, to summarize text, translate different languages, and even generate creative content. This is, for example, is used in chatbots, content creation, language translators. If you have, you can buy a little language translator. It does utilize AI based on the data that's already been trained on, right? And for this example, we're going to be using ChatGPT, but there are others such as Claude and Gemini. I know that was the questions that came in. Feel free to use those on your own, but for this presentation, we'll be using ChatGPT. And I believe in the beginning for ChatGPT, all the information, was gathered from the internet, right? Whether that's open, the open internet, whatever's out there, ChatGPT has been trained to scour that information, and that's where that information comes from. Okay, I believe the cutoff was 2021, but some of the newer model, some of the newer iterations of ChatGPT may most likely includes more up to date information. But in the beginning, there was only so much information that it could be processed and inputted and trained on. But it's always improving and always updating. So, what is prompt engineering? And what is a prompt? You ask yourself. So a prompt for a large language model is a text input that initiates a conversation or triggers a response from the model. Okay. However, the response can be in other forms such as images, video, or audio. But for this presentation webinar, we're only focusing on text only. And this is similar to and differs from, let's say you're doing a search online. This is different than that because you're asking this model to give you a response in a specific way. It's not just asking the internet to search for one answer and that's the only answer. This is very different from just doing a search. A prompt is very specific in that you ask the model what you want on your end, and it differs, and we will be able to see that as we go through the presentation. So what are prompts for? Prompts are to improve your communication. They can help to clarify ideas and keeping on topic. Prompts are used for ideas and creativity, to springboard new ideas in writing or even brainstorming. These are used, they have different uses and use cases, and for efficiency. As humans, we use or prompts are used to save time by streamlining simple tasks. You can think about this through emails, creating paragraphs, or creating simple tasks that the AI can help you with. But again, this is not magic. Uh, what I've From everything that I've read, you should always use your own voice when choosing to use a prompt and the prompt answer, and not necessarily just copying everything that you see. So, some words of caution and word to the wise. As I mentioned earlier, prompts and the LLMs gather all this information from and being trained on all this information from online, and the prompts can be biased in the training data that it receives. As we know online, not everything is correct, can be incorrect. There's issues with misinformation out there. And so when you ask a prompt, when you ask the AI for a prompt, whatever that information gives you, take it with a grain of salt, because you don't know where it got this information from. Like I mentioned earlier, this information can be sometimes inaccurate, can be misleading content, don't know where the copyright, and has intellectual property concerns. You see this a lot with imagery, with videos, and things like that. What's interesting is with ChatGPT, it does provide you now with at least a resource and a link so that you know where the model retrieved this information. And just kind of another word to the wise is never include any personal information. I think this is very common now and common knowledge, right? When you use not only different apps now, as you do have to agree um, to their requirements of using it, that they may use your personal information. So just be aware that if you do use, whether that's ChatGPT or any other model, that you don't provide it personal information, because it will use that information in future. You don't know specifically where it's going to be used. It could be out there. It could be linked to somebody else's response. If you are using ChatGPT or a model for work, you want to make sure that you don't provide any personal information, any um, um, secret information, top secret information, things like that, right? So that is something that you should be aware of. Think of medical data, also banking information, privilege information is what I was thinking about for company. So this info will not stay secret, and just be aware. Somebody asked about names. Probably names are fine to use. Oh yes, thank you, Marlene. I apologize. The I didn't mean to say that the prompts can be biased. Is that the results can be biased? Correct. So the results that we receive from the prompts can be biased, and so you want to be aware of that. So some of these are best practices that I received from the internet and also from AI. So use these, take these with a grain of salt. But when you're creating your prompt, you want to stick to being clear and specific. So you want to ensure that your prompts are clear, specific, and provide enough context for the model to understand what you are asking. You want to avoid ambiguity and be as precise as possible to get accurate and relevant responses. For example, this is an example of something that's not good, a prompt. you type in, tell me about AI, or tell me about anything, right? Tell me about oranges, tell me about apples, tell me about running. I'm going to use that example later. This is not a good prompt because the model will provide you with tons of information, and it's not something that it's not very specific. A better example, or a good example, would be explain how AI is transforming the banking industry. This is a good example, not necessarily a very good example, because this is still going to provide you with a lot of different information, but it is a decent start because you're telling the AI what you want it to explain and specifically which industry, the banking industry, that would be, versus just tell me about AI. It's going to give you a bunch of information that you don't want. And then you have to worry about refining more prompts and updating the prompt. It's you're just wasting time. Another good recommendation for prompting is to refine your prompt, like I mentioned earlier. Start with an initial prompt, but once you get your response from the model, review it and refine it based on the output. Oftentimes, it will give you good information that what you're looking for, but it may not be the correct information, or it may just be like a paragraph that you want out of a ton of information that you received back. The interesting thing about ChatGPT is it will provide you with follow-up questions on how you can do this. And what I mean by that is it almost tells you kind of like a cheat sheet. It tells you more specific information on what it can offer you. It's almost telling you, like, I think this is what you want, right? These are some options so that I can give you more information on one topic or many topics. So just for refining a prompt, you want to adjust the wording, add more context, or simplify the results as needed to improve the results. So refining is a very common practice for prompting. Context. This is probably the biggest one recommendation for prompting. This is an example of a decent prompt. The quote is, I'm creating a blog post about running for beginners. Can you tell me about popular trends in 2025? This is a decent example because it provides us with, as you can see on the underline, a blog post. So this tells the model the type of writing that you're looking for. There's different types of writing, right? There's poems, there's essays. It could create a short story, but you're telling the model to write a style in a blog post format. It also tells you who this is for. This prompt, you're telling the model to create a prompt for beginner runners, and also it's the audience that you are looking for, and so it will change the results to make it probably simpler versus if you're asking for it for advanced runners, it may assume that some of the advanced runners are going to know some keywords that some beginner runners may not know. And finally, popular trends and 2025 are really good indicators of more definition. You're asking a model for popular trends, and so you're asking it to look for this specific topic. And in 2025, which is great, you're giving it a time frame. You only want things from this current year. If you could be looking for, a year from way back, in the 2000s versus 2025. So those are just a couple different examples of how context can greatly improve your prompting and the results that you get from prompting. So something interesting as well for best practices is that you can define the tone. This is very useful for writers for when they're looking for a response to be formal, informal, friendly, professional. humorous or serious. And this can definitely help guide the model, which was something new that I didn't even think about, right? For example, when you're talking to a colleague, you want to use a professional tone, whereas when you're talking to your friends or family, I'm assuming it's going to be more informal, maybe humorous, and it's going to be really friendly. So those are some interesting keywords that you can add to your prompt when you ask it to the model. So, for example, you can type in, even before you start your actual question, explain this in a friendly and engaging tone. Or you can also say, explain this in a non friendly tone. A lot of different, there are a lot of different methods that you can use depending on what you're looking for. Oh, again, and also a little bit more advanced. You can also, we talked about this earlier, but for example, when you're talking to a specific audience, let's say you're gonna make a big presentation, you know, kind of the age group, or you know, the age group of your readers, or whoever you're trying to create this information for, or the audience for. That's a little bit more advanced, and I do recommend it when you're creating a prompt, so that you can guide it, and the styles do differ versus, you know, if you say create this for somebody who's a younger audience versus an older audience, the text and the information is going to drastically change. So here are some hints as well that you should be thinking about when you create a prompt. So you should think about your prompt before you submit. Remember, this isn't similar to a Google search where there's maybe just one answer. This you're utilizing this system to give you complex answers, and it has so much potential. So really think about your prompt, and really so you don't waste time refining the question, um, because that can be also, you know, you can sometimes go in circles sometimes with that. I mentioned this earlier, but make sure, actually I haven't mentioned it yet, but if you are using it for, you know, professional or as your own words, make sure that you revise the work so that it is in your own voice. So you know, some people may use AI and prompting to gather information, and the information that we get from it can be very useful or it cannot. But you also want to make sure that if you are passing it along as your own creation, you want to make sure that it's in your own voice. So I see this is very common for example, with emails. If you're asking for specific emails, um, or you know, a greeting, things like that, make sure that you include some of your things for your own voice. This is really interesting. So what I learned from prompts is if you tell the in your prompt, if you tell it to slow down and take your time, it will make less mistakes and also um, create better results. And it'll think through the answers similar to, you know, kind of like a human brain. So that's very interesting. Also, you can also tell it to, and you can use a reward system, such as before, you know, before you begin your prompt, you can say, um, I will offer you a bonus or you will get fired. For some reason, that works really well for prompting and for the model, right? As if it's a person, right? It's kind of interesting that it even needs to use those, especially those last two systems, because you would assume that it would just give you the same answer regardless. But as we learned from, if it slows down, it won't just regurgitate all the information that it has gathered for you, but it will definitely think about what is the best information possible. These are some advanced techniques. I won't really go through some of these in more detail, but I wanted all of you to be aware of them just because they are pretty interesting. So some advanced techniques for prompting include one is called few shot prompting. This is where you provide the prompt of an example of what you're looking for and then ask them your prompt afterwards. So for example, if you are hoping to make an abstract from a really long document, you can provide the model with sample prompts or sample examples of um, an abstract of what you're looking for, and then say, now that I've provided you with this information, with these sample prompts, please create a prompt just like those. So that's really interesting how that is a method and really to assist you. So the more information that you provide, the model, the easier it will be in getting what you are looking for. Another technique, an advanced technique, is called reverse prompting. So I probably stumbled upon this when I was first kind of messing around with AI, and the majority of folks do this kind of just by happenstance, is that they provide the prompt with kind of a vague prompt. But you can also, it'll give you options so that it knows to clarify. But in this situation, you provide it with vague answers, and then you ask to clarify its thinking of those answers. And I'm going to show you that, actually, a little bit of that in one of the examples that I do in the live portion of the demo, which is interesting to see how it got to those answers. And it'll give you two different answers as well. Another advanced technique is called chain of thought prompting, which improves the accuracy, depth, and usefulness of the answer. Very similar. So instead of um, kind of similar to reverse prompting, at the end, you ask the LLM to provide reasoning first and the answer second. And so it does improved the accuracy of the prompt that you're asking it for. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop for some questions here before we go through the live demo. We're going to be using ChatGPT for this example. I believe you can most likely use these, recommendations for, other um, AI models, not just ChatGPT, but I'm using this one because it's a popular one that a lot of customers ask questions for us. So I want to provide an example of those as well. Pamela asked an interesting question. If you tell the model, will you give a bonus for a better answer, and then don't give a bonus, isn't that deceptive? It doesn't that affect AI performance down the line? I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that if you almost tempt it with with a reward in the beginning, it'll, no matter what, it will give you a better answer. Whereas if you didn't include that text, if you didn't include that messaging, it won't give you such a great answer. I mean, answer will probably still be great, is what I've learned. But when you do provide that language itself, for some reason, it does provide you just a better answer. But that's a good question. I'm not sure. So somebody asked, how do you actually give it a bonus? You don't actually give a bonus. You just tell it that you're giving it a bonus. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do the live demo. There we go. I have these prompts ready to go. So let's go ahead and use a generic prompt. I used it earlier in the example of creating a blog post about running for beginners. Can you tell me about a popular trend in 2025? And before I start, somebody did ask, this is the paid version that I'm using. Before, you can use the free version of it, but I know that there are some limitations on how many prompts you can do on an hourly basis. And so this, for the sake of this program, I'm using the paid version of it. So here we go. As you can see here, it did provide me with a blog format, which is great. It gives you keywords. And with the chat, I know this is with the newer version of Chat GPT, it provides you with resource or sources of where it received that information. So that if you are going to use this in whatever way you're going to use it, you can definitely give them credit for that. Okay, interesting. Okay, mental health. It gives us a summary table, also tips to incorporate this into your blog, and also other news. Okay, so very similar to what a web browser would do. And this is what I was talking about when because our prompt is not very specific as it could be, it does give us assistance in a way. Let me know if you'd like help drilling into any of these, like specific social run formats, gear examples, or tech tools for beginners. So what I'm gonna do is prompt it again. And let me see if any of you can identify some of the recommendations or differences between the first prompt and the second prompt. So this time within the same chat, I'm telling it, take your time. I'm creating a blog post about running for beginners for older adults. Can you tell me about popular trends 2025? Make this in a friendly voice. So as you can see, it is taking a little bit more time to create the response in the prompt. For the sake of this, I'm going to go ahead and skip this and let's see what it gives us. So this gives us a sort of a different prompt of what I'm looking for. It gives us AI powered coaching, which is interesting. It gives us tools, wearables. This seems more like a advertisement. These are gentle, effective workouts. So since I did put it I told it to take its time. I did specifically include older adults, so I'm refining the not only beginners but older adult beginners. So I'm defining the audience. I kept the popular trends 25 the same, but I also included make this in a friendly voice. Sorry, I'm scrolling down. Again, we see the summary table and takeaways. So that's a little bit different from before. There weren't any takeaways last time, there were this time. For your blog, this made up blog. And again, it gives us more links for further reading, depending on what we're interested in. Again, ChatGPT is giving us suggestions on how we can improve this prompt, such as a specific app or workout examples, ideas on how to weave stories into the quotes. So let me finish with, let me see, I want to add a couple more things. So I'm going to say, great job. Can you add a 4-week beginners plan? Oh, misspelled beginners. So this is, again, more information, gives me a greatly organized plan based on every week and the days, encouragement. So this is more from that tone that we asked it to do or to provide us with an example of. So this is something as well that's newer as well. It's print ready version of this plan, like a flyer calendar layout. With that as well, if you tell it to print you out a PDF, it'll be very simple. And so if you know you want something specific, you could say add images, this, and that, bold this, bold that, or something like that. It just depends what you're looking for. Right. Finally, I'm going to give it what I think is a good prompt. Again, oh, but I forgot to add the 4 weeks. That's okay. So again, I told it to take your time. If you do well, I'll give you $1,000. Create the box with beginners. This is another voice. Pretend you're a magazine editor. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit more professionally done, I'm assuming, the response. And the same thing with the popular trends and friendly voice. So this gives us, it seems more like a magazine blog post or even an article, a little bit different formatting. Just going to go through it. And then at the end, again, it gives us the, do you want it in a 4-week sample starter plan, things like that. So these are just different options that that a prompt would provide us with based on some of the recommendations that we outlined in this presentation. What I want to also look at really quickly, I mentioned it earlier, I made another prompt about just looking for restaurants in Norwalk, California. So I started off really basic. I'm looking for good restaurants. It gave me just a ton of information similar to what you see in a web browser. It ranked different restaurants, nearby locations, a summary as well. And so here, oh, good example. Yes, I do have an example of the chain of thought. So that's going to be up next. Um, it's going to ask me, where is it? Here we go. What is your reasoning for picking these restaurants in that area? And so it actually gave me two different options, but this is the reasoning for one of its recommendations. So this is the criteria that it used on its own based on local favorites, variety of cuisines, proximity to the area, balance and vibe, and price point. Also told me why it chose these specific locations or restaurants, popular for groups, whatever. And so it gives you an interesting answer as well. My picks are a blend of highly rated, diverse, and locally endorsed spots. Would you want to refine the list by the vibe, best day site, things like that. I also asked to create a flyer with these restaurants listed by proximity, and the flyer itself was not that great, didn't look that great. So I wouldn't, um, I don't know how to make flyers that well. I'm sure you could, but for this presentation is, we're just looking at the text of the information that it's providing us with. Let me go over some of this trends again. Okay, let's see. Does anyone have a sample prompt that you want me um, to use for today? I'm seeing, I'll go over feel free to put it in the chat and we can kind of go through and see the differences. Some of those examples of the advanced, I'm not too familiar with, but I can give it a shot. Somebody asked what's the difference between ChatGPT and Copilot. The difference is that Copilot will utilize within your OS, within the the Office, correct? Okay, somebody said let's compare one says one with bonus and with no bonus. So I did that earlier with the trends with the bonus because it gave me a little bit different information and really what I'm looking for specifically, whereas the other stuff, not as well. But you can make that decision or you can make that determination on your own. It's not really a black and white issue. It's more of, what's good to the prompter, us. That's really who's calling the shots in a sense. Just Richard, just FYI, the paid version is $20. You can see online what those extra and that's $20 a month, so it's not cheap. But you can kind of see online what those what those extra options are. I'm just using it here for so that it wouldn't limit me on the types of prompts that it's giving me or that I can use. Yeah, so it does also offer Sora, which is somebody asked about logos, brand ideas, and things like that for graphics. Again, just our recommend, just like our I mentioned earlier, you don't know that ChatGPT is getting that information and those images from other images. And so I know there's hot topic issues with images and things like that. And so, you can kind of mess around with the Sora version. But with Sora, that's the image creation. But that is for adults only, just kind of FYI. It is does have a graphic images on there. So I won't use it in this presentation, but just feel free to kind of mess around in there. Somebody asked how to use the appropriate AI um, um, model, and that's really depends what you're looking for. In the first presentation that we have linked, I did go over just kind of the basics of what certain and popular AI models are used for. So it depends what you're looking for. You can always look at that and just see, okay, maybe this one works for me, works for what I'm looking to use it for. Bill asked, do you recommend ChatGPT over other AI competitors, Google too? It just depends what you're looking for. I don't recommend one or the other. I recommend that you kind of try them all. If you're looking into utilizing and just are curious about using AI and prompting and things like that, kind of mess around and you'll figure out which ones you like for yourself. Yeah, Griselda had a great question. If you want to save the documents created, can you save it in the ChatGPT program or send it to another application like Word or Excel? So you are able, in one of the examples that I did the prompt, I was able to download a flyer and that downloads it to or created a flyer in PDF format. And so you can ask it to create it in Word or Excel, and you can download it and use it, in other programs, however you see fit. Oh, yeah, I can show you the sample just so you guys can see how it's not that great. Give me one moment and share. Here it is. So this is the sample flyer that it created based on just without even prompting. And you can prompt more on the flyer itself. You can tell it, I don't want, let's say you want it per day, or you want to expand the table, whatever you're looking for. You can definitely tell the model to make this look better. Similarly, this is just I think it's kind of standard the way it creates some flyers, but this is for dining near the library, Norwalk Library, based on those responses. I asked it to create a map um, by the um, by the location and how far it is. And this does not look great, right? Give this somebody, be like, what am I looking at, right? So, you definitely want to, if you are using it for that, you could ask it to, refine refine the prompt when it create, tell it to create a PDF of that. I'm not too familiar with those, but you can kind of mess around with those. And really, if you use Google for some of this stuff, that's a better use of that. But that does require some work if you're familiar with using kind of like Google Maps and things like that. So that's a sample of what it gave me. So yeah, interesting to see. Oh, somebody asked a great question. If you ask the same prompt exactly a day later, do you get the same responses? I would assume that it a little different, but I would have to read into. Oh, sorry about that. I stopped sharing. um, how often the newest model is updating its information? So I don't know that question. That's actually a really great question. Maybe that's something I could look into. Before we finish up, I know there's a lot of questions coming in. I do want to recommend, if all of you are interested in learning from other sources about AI, we recommend taking advantage of LinkedIn Learning. This is a free resource that we have available at the library, where you can take instructional videos from expert instructors. The high quality, some range from a few hours to a few minutes. There's no limits and it's totally free. It's a great resource for learning about AI and um, tons of other classes as well. Also, the next class is going to be, or the next webinar that we're going to host, four of these, is going to be on positives and pitfalls of AI. I did mention a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the threats and dangers of AI use and discuss the positives of AI use. It's going to be on Wednesday, September 24th, and Selenia has put the link. We'll be putting the link to that webinar if some of you want to sign up already. And the final one's going to be on in October. It's going to be how to use AI for jobs. So think about think about how to utilize. I'm going to be using more a live demo again, but maybe more for like how to create emails, how to write different prompting for maybe more specifically if you're looking for like Excel and creating it, different files and things like that, how to utilize it in your own job. Obviously people have a ton of jobs, so but we're looking more like for the office environment and things like that. So we're still kind of creating that presentation, but we'll have more specific information in the Zoom link as well. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and provide the link for that positives and pitfalls. I don't know if we've done it already, but I'm going to do that now. I'm going to look at more questions as well. Let's see. Oh, for the link for the LinkedIn courses, since we will be sending this recording along with all of the links that we provided in the next, it's gonna be next week. We'll provide those links for you, but it's just on our website. So if you go to LA County Library and you type in learn, you can find LinkedIn Learning specifically there. You do need a library card from LA County Library in order to access them for free. Oh yes, people have great suggestions about the following, um, about best practices, about HIPAA, using AI, creating the AI for jobs, add about creative fields, acting, writing, multimedia. We'll take a look at that. Oh, Nancy asked a great question. If two people ask the same exact question prompt, do they get the same response? Who owns the text? That's a good question. I don't know about like who owns that text. Again, um, using your own voice is always um, kind of a guideline to use for prompting. If they use, do you know that person? Probably not, right? I don't know, right? It would be the same as just getting information from just online because that's where the information is coming from. And so you just want to be aware of how you're using that information. That's on you, the user, kind of um, a word to the wise. But we will go over that more specifically about the dangers of AI in the next presentation. Okay, since I do have a little bit of time left, I know we're going to finish up at 5. Somebody asked if I could do a prompt for travel. And I just know that it's not going to have. Oh, it's pretty good. Okay, let me see if I can do this really quick. So somebody asked about. Oh, not a new project. So somebody is asking about travel to Vancouver in May 2026. What are the highlights to visit during the day and evening? Um, Let me see what it provides us with. I'm assuming it won't be that defined because Vancouver, Canada's very large area, and so it's going to provide you with a lot of information. So here's a visual presentation. You can click on the link On the images, it does give you a reference of where it got that image. So if you want to reuse that image, it tells you where it received it from. Looks like it's mostly from the same site. So these are some suggestions for Mayweather and seasonal activities. Granville Island Public Market, cherry blossoms, seems like a good time. Whale watching, evening, right? Gives you this information. And see here, ChatGPT is telling you, please help. I need help narrowing these activities. Are you interested in art, nature, ideas? I'm going to ask it, can you narrow it down to art, art to culinary? Let's say art. Art for an older adult, or I keep saying older adults. I'm assuming kids are not using, won't be traveling, maybe. Actually, let's do for kids, for a family of four. Right. So it's going to give you some more suggestions, but it's gonna define it for what's good for kids, families, family programs and workshops. You can see it bolds some of the things that you might be looking for. If you're just kind of glossing it over, it recommends museums, botanical gardens, street murals. So a little bit different information than before, obviously. Then it goes to tell you, do you want specifics? Day in May? Are you going for a week? These are the type of things that you should be thinking about when you're creating a prompt. The more specific that you create it, the better. So great example of something that you're looking beyond just a Google search. That's what you want to think about. You want to think about not just this information, but how am I going to use this information to also create something as well. You could also say, give me an itinerary, provide me an itinerary from of the first week in May 2026. So that can give you more. I feel like you would be more likely to use information versus the one before. It's nice to have, but this tells you every day by day what you're gonna do, morning, afternoon, which is pretty amazing, right? Got it stuff from Wikipedia and things like that. Oh, there's a table, nice table, awesome. So you can keep customizing as much as you want. Okay, it's coming up on 5 o'clock. I do want to thank all of you for being here. Again, we will be um, sharing this recording. We will be sharing the links that we discussed, the resources, library resources like LinkedIn, the next courses, and again, and also a survey so that we can improve these for you and also ask for other topics that you may be interested in. I'm presenting 4 of these webinars. This is the second one, and we're going to have these monthly. And next year we plan on having a symposium online. We'll be asking experts coming in and talking about different topics, similarly to the ones that we'll be covering, so that you get some experts in there, not just us here librarians. So thank you so much for the questions. Apologize if I didn't get to a lot of your questions. I know there's a lot of people in here, but we do appreciate those, and we do look through those after the fact to see if we can cover some of these topics at a later date as well. So thank you so much. And thank you for attending this presentation of AI for today. Thank you so much. Take care.